I came here because I love this place. I like standing in the rain and watching the desert bloom. I've seen storms blow across here that are just mind-boggling. Sunrises and sunsets that are beyond description. I like looking at the dark sky where I can see the stars in the Milky Way. And someday I'll have a grandkid, and I want that child to be able to experience what I am experiencing. And at the rate we're going, that's not going to happen.
This is West Texas, and people are very, very protective and very proud of their property. And if there's a fence there, that means you're supposed to stay out. Don't be surprised if you cross a fence if you don't get shot at.
I love seeing country that has largely been unaffected by habitation. I hate to see that changed or disturbed or encroached upon.
We don't have massive infrastructure, and that's one of the things that makes it special and keeps it unique.
We're not just hippies, we're not just environmentalists. We're engineers, we're artists, we're housewives, ranchers, business owners. The spectrum of people involved in the opposition are broad and wide.
I have been brainwashed with this Texas myth of cattle and oil. It's this continual, perpetual myth that goes on. Now, the oil has come into town.
Pump jacks on the horizon, pipelines snaking across the landscape. The energy industry is a big part of the state of Texas, but there's a corner of the state where there's little evidence of oil and gas. And as Marfa Public Radio's Travis Bubinik reports, some people who live there are worried that could soon change.
The Big Bend region in far west Texas is a place where some cattle ranches have been in the same family for generations. In this windy and mountainous high desert corner of the state, there aren't any oil rigs. No gas wells, no coal, and no big pipelines. But a Dallas company wants to build a 143-mile natural gas underground pipeline here, not to bring gas to Texans, but to Mexico.
But that's exactly opponents' problem with the pipeline. It's designated a public utility, meaning it's supposed to be in the public interest, but they say the public it would benefit is in Mexico, not in the Big Bend.
This land is what makes me who I am. Are you good? Are you good besides the flies? Huh? To be part of this land, it's just ephemeral. Nobody owns this land. It's all very temporal. There is such a thing as stewardship, but the land is the land.
Hi! Watch it. Be careful. Don't charge me. Don't you charge me. Ha! Move on.
This land doesn't care about me. These rocks, these hills, these grasslands, these arroyos, these water holes, this is my country. This is what makes me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, my bad.
Be still. Be still. Nature has the last say, and it's a wonderful, awesome, humbling notion. That's why when something like the pipeline comes along, you stand.
Is that hot enough?
Yeah, it's just about perfect. Put a Chevy 350 motor, because that's a common motor. And it's got an automatic transmission, so when you're driving in parades and stuff, you know, you can have your arm around your honey and power steering. You don't have to be shifting and double clutching and all that stuff like they did in the 1930s or something. But I'm here because I like it. And the thing I like about it is you get the natural beauty of the whole Big Bend country. And then you can meet all kinds of interesting people from all over the world, from all walks of life, and be in a spot like this. That's pretty amazing. Whoa, ho, ho. It's a different experience, you know. I think most everybody that comes here, they say, I got out of the car, I put my foot on the ground, and I felt at home, you know. I felt a feeling here. I felt magic here. People are not really sure what it is, but they know it's something. And it feels comforting and different than what they're used to. Almost everybody that comes out, most people go, wow, I've never heard it so silent. And at night, you've looked up here, the stars are like, it feels like you can reach up and touch them. They're right above your head. It's just nature and natural world at its, how it probably was for millions of years.
What we're looking at is having an appreciation of what was, I guess. When you think of the Trans-Pecos region from west of the Pecos River, you've got to really understand that it is, in a sense, one of the last frontiers. It's understood that this place has been inhabited for thousands of years by natives. So it is one of the last places that was colonized, Americanized. Our people were essentially being pushed out. We were being pushed out to this point by the Spanish. We were being pushed out by the Americans. We didn't have so-called land ownership. The land didn't belong to us. We belonged to the land. And as the Eurocentric mind of ownership that came into this place, essentially just was one of pushing us out. That is the history of Texas. It's just part of the history of the United States. And then you fall into that myth of, okay, that Texas is oil and gas. And I remember when I was a young boy on the south side of Alpine, we're talking early 60s. Our summer days would be spent out there playing baseball, We're adopting to the American ways of life. And once a week, our game would be interrupted when one of the neighborhood vaqueros would be walking to his house there at the end of the street. And we would always know when he was coming, because he would he would exclaim at the top of his lungs, "Que viva la sierra!" And all of us kids would look back at him and we would shout back at him, "Que viva la sierra!" Because to us, one day we were thinking, we too want to be in that sierra. We too want to work in a ranch. That is beckoning to us. We said, God, one of these days we'll be up there. But I also knew that shout had a second part. And now I associate that second part to what we're fighting here with this pipeline. The second part of that shout was, "Y que no me la encerquen." And don't fence it in. The love of the mountains. Don't fence them in. Don't put anything in them. The same thing is happening to us right now as this pipe coming through this sacred land. The chickens have come home to roost.
Energy Transfer already owns pipelines across the state and the country. Now it's won a contract from Mexico's Electricity Commission to bring gas from the Permian down south across the border. More than 30 flatbed rail cars carrying green 42-inch pipe were being unloaded onto the ground just outside of Alpine Wednesday afternoon. Travel this region's highways and you'll see miles of green pipe stretched across the high desert, waiting to be buried underground. Construction crews are working to get the project up and running in the next few months.
I don't know how long I'm going to be out there, so I'll probably pack for about a week at a time, play it by ear. Last time I checked, they were about 1.5 miles away from the site. But of course, what my fear is that I'm going to get out there and they'll have already destroyed the site. So basically, the camping out serves two functions. One is to monitor them, keep an eye on them, keep them honest, and the other is to increasingly document the site in greater detail. So we know what we stand to lose, and then of course I'll be there when they hit it, and I'll document the destruction. And I plan to show that documentation, get it out there in the public eye so people know. Just like what happened in North Dakota. They're doing it here. And we're going to hold them accountable as best I can anyway. It's going to absolutely destroy what's good about this region. The crux of it is that it's not going to benefit anybody in the United States. So for whose public good? We can just kiss the Big Bend goodbye. I mean, if this isn't sacred, then what is? So we set these little teepees up just to kind of highlight the features, because obviously as an archaeological site, everything's very low to the ground. And so by having these up, you can kind of get a better sense of the spatial elements of the site. Most of them are set up right around or nearby these mortar holes, which are ancient grinding appliances. Part of the site is kind of anomalous to a kitchen, what we consider a kitchen. And that's one of the great things about this site, is that it has different rooms, so to speak. It's got different parts of the site were used in discrete ways, distinct ways. This site is on private land, and because it is, it kind of falls between the cracks in terms of protection. It's very unfortunate. Any project that is on public land or that uses public money requires certain kinds of surveys, and cultural surveys is part of that. So if this was public land, or if it was using public money, then they would be required to basically mitigate the damage that they're going to do. Probably they would have, in that case, rerouted the pipeline out of the site instead of wiggling it within the site, which really doesn't address the problem. And so we don't know what we stand to lose. We don't know what's under there. They didn't test the site, and we won't know until they start in with the bulldozers, and then it'll be too late. So, but I'll be here giving them hell. It's hard to fight something that you never really even physically see, that you physically can feel, you know, and you don't get a sense of it until you're on the land, you know, where it's going to be destroyed. And then it becomes personal. I find the whole Big Bend region, the greater Big Bend region, not just the national park, but all of it, which means the Tri-County area and beyond, to be kind of sacred ground. I mean, it's the last best place in Texas. It's the last unspoiled corner of the state. It's the last place that doesn't have oil and gas pipelines everywhere. We don't have pump jacks. We don't have infrastructure. What we do have is minimal. Those are my buddies.
There's no missing all the bumps, and I'm trying to slow down for the worst ones. it's used to try to keep them in better shape, but that's all I can tell you. It's got away from me. Whale birds up here always scatter grain everywhere, and they come get me out of the house in the morning, so that helps, gives me something to do. You can see the pipe down here on the left where they've come across this today, and when we were watching that machine, he's probably just down over this hill, but we really probably will drop down in the draw before we get to where we could see where that machine was working. I wouldn't have believed it if it hadn't happened to me, that we were just looking at where we knew it would cross, and we were out walking around just checking out the area, and we found a stake behind a bush right next to the road, and then as we got to walking each way, we started finding stakes that were out in the pasture. Looks like they're going to work late tonight. When when we got looking farther, then we found more and more stakes, and at that point we understood what had happened, that they hadn't even gotten permission to come and survey it. But like I say, it's just the way it played out, and it turned out we couldn't stop them anyway. We had to give them permission to come back for the third time and stake it. And it's just the way the law's been changed in their favor through the years. Basically, the landowner has no rights.
Last night, the company behind the planned Trans-Pecos pipeline hosted 2 open house meetings in Presidio and Alpine. Lauren Madelon was at the meeting in Alpine last night. And Lauren, what was the overall feeling?
Well, for many pipeline opponents, there honestly was a sense of dread and inevitability and a curiosity, frankly, about what legal options might be open to them. And I should point out that 2 weeks ago, the Texas Railroad Commission granted the company Energy Transfer public utility status, and with that comes the power to use eminent domain to seize land from private landowners who refuse to deal with the company. So the state has ruled that this project is in the public interest, even though the gas is destined to serve Mexican electricity plants. It's financed by Mexico, as we mentioned, and also includes investment from Carlos Slim, Mexico's richest man. And the pipeline opposition is making some strange bedfellows, namely an alliance of conservative landowners and ranchers and environmentalists. Here's David Keller of the Big Bend Conservation Alliance.
We want cleaner energy for Mexico, of course, but not at the expense of the Big Bend. But, again, I think that the ground on which they're standing for those eminent domain proceedings is very weak. And that really brings it all into question. Do they have a true standing to pull eminent domain?
So Texas has a wonderful 100-year-plus history with the oil and gas industry. In Texas, there is no permit required to route a pipeline. So you, the pipeline company, would go negotiate with a property owner, and if that property owner was interested in doing business with you, they would grant you an easement to run your pipeline across their property. But there are people who aren't interested in selling, who aren't interested in having a pipeline on their property, and they fall into a class called the unwilling seller. So in Texas, the law empowers the pipeline company to acquire that easement through the process of eminent domain condemnation, to basically take the property from you, whether you want to sell it or not. Whatever's in the path is just dust. They're inside of an air-conditioned cab with no visibility of what they're running over.
Really? You can't see it?
You can't see it. You can't see what you're running over because the blade assembly is in front of you in the path, just grinding up whatever's in your path.
You've actually
I've actually
operated
run those machines.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you know exactly what
I know
they're
exactly what they're doing. Every pass that he takes is going down an inch to an inch and a half, and he'll come down 6 inches at least to do what they're doing for right-of-way prep.
I asked the guy, one of the guys driving this, I said, how do you like the job? He said, I hate it. He said, but the money's good. He said, I don't want to be here any more than you do. I don't know.
It's just a job until they have some awakening that, you know, it's not just a job. They're going to keep doing it. In the 1970s through the mid-1980s, I was an engineer for various companies in the oil and gas energy industry. I was on a job, and one morning they had opened up a new road through the gathering fields where the wells and related hardware were. And about every 50 yards, there was a bamboo pole with a windsock on it. And then there were a bunch of cattle that were in these same fields that were really terribly out of place. It wasn't grazing land. And so I asked one of the folks on the bus, you know, what's going on with the windsocks, what's happened with the cattle. And he laughed and he said, well, this is the canary in the coal mine. He said, if you ever see a cow laying on the ground, turn and run the other direction from the wind. And then I asked him, I said, well, the town is just a couple of thousand feet below us, downslope of this thing. What about the people in the town? He said, that's not our problem. And that day it occurred to me what we were doing and what the risks were there, and I made the decision to leave that industry. Okay, so I do have to use some caution here. So where your Jeep is parked, if we think about a line down the road, we're still on the public easement. But if I step over into the space where the orange stakes are, I'm technically trespassing. So I've got to use some discretion. So there are about 300 people, give or take, a lot of livestock that live in this small community. This pipeline comes underneath this road, which is their only means of getting into or out of Sunny Glen. So if the pipeline in this vicinity were to rupture, explode, and catch fire, they're basically cut off. And all of these people are at risk. So there are a lot of concerns just about the routing and a lot of questions about why does it have to be here? Why couldn't it have gone further to the northwest or further around to the southeast to avoid the populated area of Alpine and the small communities that surround it? So lots of questions have basically gone unresolved. But here we are, and the threat to these people is real, it's palpable. Well, nobody yelled at us or arrested us. That's a good thing.
I first came to this country, the terrain, the topography appealed to me, and climate appealed to me, and the undisturbed nature of it appealed to me. And that's what drew me here and kept me here. I love seeing country that has largely been unaffected by habitation. I don't even like looking at farmland because I feel like it needs to be natural. I like country to look like it looked when it was created, or as close to that as possible. I hate to see country disturbed. It scares me that the whole area could change. A little over a year ago, I guess, we got our first offer from the pipeline company. We've been receiving information in the mail that the project was planned and that it was going to happen. The pipeline company would have the power of eminent domain, and it was with dread that we looked forward to each piece of information that we were going to get. The offer that we got was a little bit absurd. It was consuming a large portion of my thought every day. I couldn't concentrate near as much on what I wanted to be doing as I wanted to, because I was trying to protect us a little bit more. I knew I didn't want cattle on the construction zone, so we started planning to build a mile of fence so that we could keep our cattle on the land that we owned off of the pipeline easement. And a mile of fence in this area is probably a $12,000 to $15,000 investment, which took a square mile of our country out of production, which ordinarily would have supported 20, 25 mature cows and their calves. I rather resent the fact that we have to put so much effort into reprogramming our ranch operation to fit this. I'd like for someone to give me a reason that supports the construction of this pipeline that doesn't involve money. That I can't get my mind around.
Through here is sacred ground, sacred land to people that have been here for thousands of years. This is the nesting ground to the spiritual medicine for the people from this region. Scarred. They'll see it. They'll realize it. The only people getting rich out of this is Kelsey Warren and Carlos Slim. That's it. Whatever crumb they'll throw to you, it won't be enough.
There are people in Presidio, Texas, government people, economic planners who are very anxious for this project to get online.
Officials in the small border city of Presidio, which would be located near the pipeline's end, say they'd love to have access to natural gas. They hope this pipeline could make that happen for the first time ever.
Presidio relies on propane to fuel homes and businesses. It's expensive, which is a big detractor to new development. City officials say it's unlikely that natural gas will reach into town for municipal use anytime soon.
Presidio is considered by most folks in the United States to be remote, too remote to get to. The one utility that everybody else in Texas seems to enjoy is natural gas, but we've never had it. But Presidio, we're open for business, and for us to grow, we needed natural gas. So we are getting a 6-inch line run to Presidio. Because we've always been needy for natural gas, we kind of wound up on the side with the pipeline that we want you to build the line and we want to get it to town. And we stuck up for them. After the job was over, they came in out of the blue and said that they wanted to do something for Presidio because we made it easy on them. We said, well, we never have had the money to finish our sports center, and they said, we like that. And so with the check, you can see where it says sports and recreation donation. So, quality of life. It's like we won the lottery and don't have to pay taxes. So, it doesn't get much better than that. Change is hard. And the folks here, a lot of them don't want it to change. And I can respect that. The good thing, especially with some of the folks that haven't seen our way, it's been a civil conversation and a difference of opinion, and that's what makes America great.
The planned Trans-Pecos pipeline has, of course, been a big point of discussion in Alpine, Marfa, Presidio, and the surrounding areas in recent months. The opposition movement's been led by the Big Bend Conservation Alliance, a small group that's trying to bring people from across political and cultural aisles together against the pipeline.
Our efforts now are to make this conversation a broader conversation on the state and national level.
We recently sat down with Pecos County Judge Joe Schuster. So what is the local feeling about this plan?
Well, actually, I think the local feeling is pretty much just a normal day. I believe that these companies are truthful and honest.
Alpine resident Sue Simmons says there's, quote, no point in protesting anymore.
I think it's unfortunate that it went through, but, I don't think there's anything we can do about it. And I feel sorry for people that it went through their land. I agree that, they should have had a say, but what can you do?
What I've learned is that there's a lot of distinction between the for and the against, which, somewhere along the line there's got to be some common ground. And, I just don't see a problem with this. I don't care if they're supplying it to Mexico, and I don't care if it's going from Mexico to Japan. Somebody demands it, somebody's got to supply it. I mean, that's just life. But then again, some of us don't have lives because we'd rather fight over something that doesn't make a whole big difference in the long run. Let's pay attention to the things that are real and matter instead of paying attention and fighting over things that we don't need to be. Not fight over this. Not fight over this pipeline. We all need to be on the same page. We can't assume what we don't really know, because we all know what assume means, right, boys and girls? Makes an ass out of you and me both. That's what assume means.
Nobody likes a garbage dump and nobody wants it in their backyard, but we gotta have them. They wanted to put in a solar plant, and the same people that griped about the pipeline We're out there protesting and griping about the solar plant. And I don't know why. They want a clean environment. I don't know what else we can do. They don't like the wind turbines. They don't like the solar energy. They don't like pipeline. They don't like nothing. They like to gripe. No cowboy likes to see the environment get hurt. But I'm not a big enough hypocrite to sit here in Marfa and fill my truck up with gas and then bitch about a pipeline. The ones that didn't like it and is forced through their property, you know, I feel bad about that. If we just shut down our pipeline system and they put it all in 18-wheelers going down the highway, there would be hundreds of deaths every day. Things do happen. Pipelines will rupture, and yes, they will contaminate a stream and all that. Hold those people accountable, make them clean it up out of their own pocket, or take their pipeline and sell it and pay for it that way. Damage done, fix it.
What can we hope for? We can hope for that whatever the next battle is in regards to trying to protect the environment around here, that people will be more aware, you know, we'll be more organized, and we'll have a better understanding of what is actually going to happen.
A couple weeks ago, the oil and gas company Apache Corporation announced it had discovered a huge new oil field straddling the Reeves-Jeff-Davis County line that the company is calling the Alpine High Play. Apache has acquired more than 300,000 acres, it says, in this part of far west Texas, where it hopes to scale up oil and gas drilling in the coming years. Caslin Kennedy is a spokesperson for Apache Corporation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the basics here. We're saying this is potentially a big deal for the company. How big of a deal?
I think this is definitely a discovery that we're proud of. We've got roughly 350,000 gross acres. Based on our understanding of the extent of the play, we have most of it leased.
Can we expect to see more rigs out in operation in the coming months, or what does that timeline look like?
Well, we haven't put together the exact plan for what 2017 will look like. Several things will dictate how active it will be, including, you know, what the price of oil is. But again, it's early to say definitively how many rigs we would run in any given year.
When we first got wind of the pipeline project, we as individuals, certainly myself, you know, the Big Bend Conservation Alliance as an organization, we were totally and completely focused on that particular project. It was really the first big infrastructure project that had arisen as a concern out here. We have a pipeline that's just run over a bunch of us and is going to continue to cause issues in the region. We have a huge oil and gas extraction process that's now well underway. There are 19 wells and growing every day. And that activity that you see now is the first of activity that will span probably the next 2 to 3 decades. Over the past 2.5 years, as we've watched the pipeline, one of the concerns we had about it was the extent to which that project was the sort of camel's nose in the tent. So it's the harbinger or precursor of a lot of other activities that are materially impactful on the region, on our culture, on the socioeconomics of where we live, on the environment where we live, public safety, quality of life issues where we live. If you came out here to go camp at Balmorhea State Park and swim in the pool, you would see a strange orange sky glow all night long from the flares that are burning. If you can imagine that scaled up 3,500 times and running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's what's in store for this area. This rectangular region bordered in red here is something that started in about 2015. This is the Apache Corporation Alpine High. So I'm going to switch maps to a different view. So this is current as of August, September 2018. It's the same map, same basic map. All of these white spots with the black center are oil and gas wells. There are now 288 producing wells in the last 2 years. So we'll look at some other things here. First, I'm going to just turn on the brackish water. This is industrial water mining activity. So these purple dots that you see coming on are all brackish water production operations that are pulling groundwater out that's being used to support this activity. So there are hundreds of those wells. Predominant end point of that water that they use for fracking to the tune of about 10 million gallons per well is to inject it back deep into the ground, and it's contaminated and it's removed from the hydrological cycle forever. We're in a desert. It's rainy today, but it won't be necessarily rainy tomorrow. So water in the desert is precious. We have to have water to live. And so using that water for activities that profoundly waste that water and take it out of the hydrological cycle are questionable in this kind of region.
Yay! Water's rising.
Hear that water running in? See all those frogs jumping?
20 years ago, this was a really remote, isolated place. And I've heard one of my sons say, oh, well, we'll just sell and move upriver, but there is no place. There is no place. If you care about a place, it behooves you to take your stand and say, this is the line in the sand, because we're out of places. I would really like to walk down to the spring and see if it's flowing with all this rain. So the spring's not running, which is too bad, but it may come back when the weather gets cool. What people understand is when their wells go dry. What people understand is when, life as we know it really, really changes. Well, when they were trying to win the good graces of the 3 counties, and we asked them where they were going to get their water for hydrostatic testing, just the water to test the pipeline, which then is rendered unfit for any kind of consumption, I understand. I thought they said they were going to bring it in from somewhere else. I don't know. Who knows what's really going to play out?
We had a house fire break out in downtown Alpine the other day. It was a reminder on how understaffed we are for emergencies. While we haven't had an oil and gas related incident out here yet, that's something we don't have the resources for as a group of volunteer firefighters. Hard to explain, but there's nobody around here except us. So if a fire busts out, there's nobody gonna come put it out except us. So the fire risk is huge out here from, even a lightning strike or a power line getting knocked down, let alone a pad fire or a pipeline blow up. So it's a constant concern. The oil and gas industry is important to Texas, and they've managed to slant the playing field completely 100% in their direction. They obscure their activities, hide what they do. If you were a thinking person and you saw this activity going on, you would say to yourself, this is sort of reminiscent of organized crime.
What y'all doing?
We're looking at this pad site.
And who are y'all with?
We're on a public highway. Is that a problem?
Yes, because I'm asking who you're with, because I'm with Apache Security. That's why I'm asking.
I'm here as an individual.
Okay, I'm asking who you are.
My name?
Who are you and why are you taking pictures of this?
We're interested in the development going on here in the Alpine High.
You need to contact somebody. I can put you in somebody for that information. You're not allowed to come out here and take pictures of the site.
We're on a public roadway.
Okay, well this is private property over here.
It's in public view.
In public view.
Again, I can put you in contact with somebody. I need your names, okay? That's why I'm asking you also. I need your names. You see that?
Are you a police officer?
Yes, I am. So I need all your names, please. I need your identifications.
What have we done
wrong? This is also a deputy too, okay? I need your information.
I'm sorry, what are we doing wrong?
I need your information, okay?
What are we doing wrong? Should we call the police, actually?
I can call them.
We're on public property.
Actually, this belongs to the state public properties out here.
Belongs to the state?
Yeah, so
That's still public
property.
Hang on, I'll take care of knowing.
No, I'll call him.
I got him.
Nope, I'll do it.
Hey,
What pad site are we
they're
on?
out here taking movies with something. They want to identify themselves.
Major water extraction is the biggest threat, I think, to the well-being of this whole area, especially the human population. And springs really only flow from the top. And so gradually, there's places that I used to go to go swimming, and I've seen those dry up. And people think it's some kind of mystical deal. Well, there were some springs that all it took was 2 houses in the valley, drill a well, spring's gone. And when you add the fact that they're doing this shale, hydraulic fractioning in this shale, which can use up to 1 million gallons or 1.5 million gallons per well, is just going to get worse. Oil and gas exploitation is considered a beneficial use. And the law protecting water bends around that. If the same driller on the same lease that's drilling the oil also drills the water well, it's completely exempt. This could get splashy. When I mentioned these little indignities, I didn't really mean that to say that, well, I've adapted to these indignities. I just think in general our public, from everything for the Fourth Amendment to any number of things that gradually get eroded. You don't notice it, but it's little at a time, To me, it makes mockery of the term home of the free and the brave, because we're not free and we're not brave. We're bought and paid for.
There's a saying in Texas that water flows uphill to money. And I'm afraid that's what will eventually happen. Greed will take over. The oil and gas industry in Texas, they have enormous wealth and political power. There's just no way in the world that this area is going to be able to take on an industry that's so well connected. I dislike the fact that someone abused that power to make money on. And in fact, this stuff's going to Mexico. That's Mexico over there. You know, normally you get down the bank, you can toss a rock into Mexico. For the longest time, people on both sides of the river here were related to each other. And the river is just an inconvenience thing. You had to get over to the other side to go see family, see friends, go shopping, go eat, something like that, you know. Mexico has changed a great deal since I was young, living on this border. Having done business in Mexico in several different areas, I can tell you that Mexico is not just a little corrupt, it's entirely corrupt. That's been my personal experience.
The issues that Mexico faces as a growing economy in part relate to the availability of economical fuels. So Mexico has very few refineries. They also have a problem with principally cartel crime and corruption. So it's hard for Mexico's economy to grow when fuel availability is a problem for them. And then arguably, if you're a producer in the United States, it's market opportunity for you. The CFE, the Mexican Electrical Utility Authority, they have plans that they've publicly announced to construct new natural gas-fired generating plants so we can account for the generating demand, and it is on the order of about 1 billion cubic feet a day. If you look in contrast at the number of border-crossing natural gas pipelines, there's more than 30 times the required natural gas going south if all these projects are constructed. So the question becomes, where is all the remainder of this natural gas that's being exported? Where is it going to go? And what you find out is that Mexico is building liquefaction facilities to export it by ship to markets overseas.
In the last year, all 4 auctions for buyers to bid on capacity for the Trans-Pecos pipeline in Mexico have failed. Without a complete network of pipelines and processing facilities to transport the gas, buyers don't want to commit. For now, the gas mostly just sits in the pipeline.
The natural gas pipeline infrastructure in Mexico is still immature. The other component is that Mexico's electrical utility couldn't build generating plants fast enough to consume all that gas. So these things take decades to build, not a year or two. So the gas can get to the border, but there's nowhere for it to go. The claimed urgency of those systems in the United States was false because there was nowhere to send the gas once you got it to the border. And so today the pipeline basically sits pressurized with no buyer at the other end.
As I walked out in the streets of Laredo, As I walked out in Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy all wrapped in white linen as cold as the clay. Oh, beat the drum slowly and play the five lowly. Sing the death march as you carry me along. Take me to the valley and lay the sod on me. For I'm a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong. Well, I can see by your outfit that you are a cowboy. These words he did say as I boldly walked by. Come sit down beside me and hear my sad story. Was shot in the chest and I know I must die. Oh, fetch me some water, a cool cup of water, to cool my parched lips, and the poor cowboy said. Before I returned, his spirit had left him. Gone to his maker, the cowboy was dead. Oh, beat the drum slowly and play the five lowly. Sing the death march as you carry me along. Take me to Green Valley and lay the sod on me. For I'm a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong. I am a young cowboy and I know I've done wrong.
I'm watering every 2 weeks now. Now is the waiting time. I guess this is my little place where I come out here and find some peace with the land, you know. Well, you know, this is some of the oldest farmland in the Americas, you know. Growing life, and hopefully more people will grow this type of life. We've lost that image of a big landowner and farmer here. That went away. That romanticized, mythical version of Texas, you know. And at the bottom of that, you have the natural resource that essentially got exploited, you know, and that would be the land. The days of the riata are gone, you know. The mythical, you know, giant situation is gone. And now we have land rights being taken over, and there's a bigger entity pulling the punches here, you know, which again comes out in that movie, in that novel, huh? It plays out.
Having lived out here all my life, I've seen it before. I've seen this movie before, so I know exactly what's going to happen. Oil and gas activity is cyclic. It's a boom bust. It's been that way for 110 years. So every boom gets bigger and every bust gets worse and lower. So what looks great now, 2 years from now might not look so great. We're easy to exploit because people view this area as a wasteland. I see it as a beautiful desert and sky island and a productive ecosystem. So we have to recognize intrinsic value in things like this naturally dark sky or the landscape that we're standing in, even these grasslands. And what we're doing that adversely impacts this and damages the intrinsic value of those things. We're part of the natural world, whether we want to own up to that or not. It's this trite saying, we are stardust. And that's why we're here. And we ought to be able to use our intellect and our passion to continue to extend that presence. So you roll back around to asking yourself the question, how far am I willing to go? And is it time to walk away? This is a huge problem, and it is multidimensional, and I still couldn't tell you where the end of this is and what the end actually is. What I keep looking for is what can I put my energy into something that's working rather than something that's not. That has tended to remain engaged with the community, to go try to have a dialogue and say, I live in this beautiful place and I like it, and do you like it? Some days it works better than others. So I'm still above the dirt.
Oh, it's raining. Man, I hope it comes down. We haven't gotten any rain in 6 months. It's always a wonderful thing to see. Probably won't last very long. So you can always hope. Rain's always exciting out here. It's always exciting. I love it so much. This place is incredibly special. Everybody could say that about their backyard, and I think that they should. But this is a whole different ballgame, in my mind. It's the state's crown jewel. It's the crown jewel of the state of Texas. I'm a dreamer. I'm not very realistic. I know that. But the way things are now is highly flawed, and so it's very frustrating. Oil and gas industry shouldn't be given free rein just to run roughshod over the country and over people and their rights. It's just wrong. In the end, it turns out we didn't have a chance. I guess it's kind of a drone, of a sound, and it's just kind of, to me, it just kind of evokes that sort of constant pressure and inevitability, and like the motion of that backhoe digging that trench. It's just kind of, I don't really don't know how to put it into words, but just kind of that relentless destruction. It's not a happy song. I guess it's a dirge or a funeral song. It's a funeral song for the Big Bend. That's really negative. I laugh a lot too. I mean, it's bleak, but you can't stop fighting. Despite all that, you've got to keep fighting.